The bags were packed and stood by the door, a silent testament to dust. Michael and Sarah, a couple who had spent years dreaming of parenthood, were about to do the unthinkable. They were returning a child. Their adoptive son, 6-year-old Eli, sat quietly on the living room floor, his small hands clutching a worn teddy bear. He wasn't crying. His face was a mask of calm that was far more heart-wrenching than any flood of tears could ever be. For 3 months he had been their son. For 3 months, this house had been his home. It was all ending. The social worker, a kind woman named Mrs. Gable, was due to arrive any minute. Michael paced the floor, his hands shoved deep into his pockets, his jaw tight. Sarah sat on the edge of the sofa, wringing her hands, her gaze fixed on the boy she was about to give up. How did it come to this? They had wanted a child so desperately. They had gone through endless paperwork, interviews, and home studies. When they first saw Eli's photo, a bright-eyed boy with a shy smile, their hearts had melted. He was perfect. The fact that he was black and they were white didn't matter to them. Love is love, they had told themselves. Love transcends color. But love, they were discovering, wasn't always enough to conquer the whispers and stares of the outside world. Their idyllic suburban neighborhood suddenly felt like a fishbowl. Neighbors who used to wave cheerfully now offered tight, forced smiles. Sarah overheard hushed comments at the grocery store. "It's a bold choice." One woman had whispered to another, her voice dripping with judgment. Michael's own mother had been even more direct. "Are you sure you're prepared for this, Michael? For the challenges?" People can be cruel. They had brushed it all aside, convinced their love for Eli would be a shield strong enough to protect him and them from anything. They were wrong. The pressure mounted, a slow, crushing weight. It wasn't just the outside world. Doubts, like insidious weeds, began to sprout in their own minds. Was this fair to Eli? Could they, to white parents, truly understand his culture, his identity? Could they equip him to face a world that would judge him for the color of his skin in ways they had never experienced? The questions spiraled, twisting their initial confidence into a knot of anxiety and fear. The joy they felt in the beginning was slowly being eroded by the constant grinding worry. They started to see the differences more than the similarities, started to see the stares more than the smiles. The breaking point came during a parent-teacher conference. Eli's teacher, meaning well, suggested they connect with other families who had transracially adopted. "It's important for Eli to have role models who look like him," she had said kindly. But to Michael and Sarah, her words felt like an accusation. It was another confirmation of their inadequacy. That night, after a long, tearful argument, they made the devastating decision. They convinced themselves it was for Eli's own good. He deserved a family that could give him everything, a family that looked like him, a family that wouldn't make his life harder just by existing. They were doing this out of love, they told themselves. A painful, twisted, self-sacrificing kind of love. So here they were, waiting for the final act of their failure. The doorbell rang, a sharp, piercing sound that made Sarah jump. Michael went to answer it, his steps heavy. It was Mrs. Gable. She entered with a somber expression, her eyes immediately finding Eli on the floor. "Are you sure about this?" she asked softly, her voice filled with a mixture of professionalism and genuine sorrow. Michael couldn't speak. He just nodded, his throat tight. Sarah buried her face in her hands, a sob finally escaping her. Eli looked up, his big, dark eyes moving from the crying woman he had called Mom to the grim-faced man he had called Dad. He looked at Mrs. Gable, a familiar face from the foster care system. He understood what was happening. He wasn't a baby. He had seen this before. He slowly got to his feet, his teddy bear still clutched tightly to his chest. He walked over to Michael and Sarah, his small figure seeming impossibly brave. He didn't cry. He didn't plead. He just looked at them, his gaze steady and clear. Then he spoke. His voice was small but carried through the silent, heavy air with shocking clarity. "Is it because I'm not a good enough boy?" The question hung in the room, simple, direct, and utterly devastating. It wasn't an accusation. It was a genuine inquiry from a child trying to understand his world, a world that was once again being turned upside down. "I can try harder," he continued, his voice wavering just a little. "I can be quieter. I can eat all my vegetables. I can try to be a different color if you want. The world stopped. Michael and Sarah froze, the air punched from their lungs. A different color. The words, spoken with such heartbreaking innocence, shattered their carefully constructed justifications. This wasn't about what was best for Eli. This wasn't about their inadequacy or societal pressure. They had let the ugliness of the world poison their hearts, and in doing so they had made this beautiful, innocent child believe he was the problem. That the very essence of who he was, the color of his skin, was something to be changed, something to apologize for. In that one gut-wrenching moment, they saw everything with perfect clarity. They saw not a black child, but their child, their son. A little boy who thought his worth was tied to his behavior, or even more tragically, his race. A little boy willing to change his very being just to be loved. What had they done? The stares of the neighbors, the whispers in the store, the misguided concerns of their family, all of it seemed so insignificant, so pathetically small, compared to the immense damage they were about to inflict on this child's soul. Sarah was the first to move. She fell to her knees in front of Eli, her tears flowing freely now, but for a completely different reason. There were tears of shame, of regret, but also of a fierce, protective love that had just been shocked back to life. "No, no, baby, no," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. She pulled him into a tight embrace, burying her face in his hair. "You are perfect. You are exactly who you were supposed to be. We are so, so sorry. We are the ones who weren't good enough. We're so wrong." Michael knelt beside them, his own face streaked with tears. He reached out, his hand resting on Eli's small back. "She's right, buddy," he said, his voice cracking. "You are our son, and we love you. Love your brown skin. We love your bright eyes. We love everything about you. We were scared and we were stupid, but we are not letting you go. Ever." He looked over Eli's head at Mrs. Gable, his eyes pleading. "Please," he mouthed silently. "We made a terrible mistake." Mrs. Gable, who had witnessed more heartbreak than most people could imagine, felt a tear trace a path down her own cheek. She had seen adoptions fail for countless reasons, but she had also seen love triumph in the most unlikely of circumstances. She saw the raw, unfiltered truth in their faces. This wasn't a performance. This was a family breaking apart and stitching itself back together, stronger and more authentic than before. She gave a slow, understanding nod. "Families are about learning," she said softly. "Sometimes the most important lessons are the hardest ones." She quietly let herself out, leaving the three of them on the floor in a tangled, tearful embrace. The packed bags by the door stood forgotten. They were no longer a symbol of an ending, but a reminder of a moment of weakness, a moment they had overcome. That day, Michael and Sarah didn't just decide to keep their son. They decided to become the parents he truly deserved. They started learning. They read books. They joined support groups. They sought out diverse communities and made sure Eli's life was filled with people who looked like him, as well as people who didn't. They stopped trying to shield him from the world and started teaching him how to navigate it with pride and confidence. They confronted their own biases and fears head-on. It wasn't always easy. The world didn't magically become a kinder place overnight, but they were no longer afraid. Their love for Eli, reforged in the fires of their near failure, was now their compass. Their family wasn't defined by the color of their skin, but by the content of their hearts. And Eli, their brave, beautiful son, finally had the one thing he deserved all along: a forever home. Built not on the absence of challenges, but on the unwavering power of unconditional love. Thank you for watching. If this story touched you, please like, share, and subscribe for more content that inspires.